Hello and welcome to today's r/entitled parents, where OP describes to us what her abusive mother did to her. The next story is from the Reddit user Adrian KJ 2001. My dad makes us give him our underwear so he can figure out which one of us clogged the toilet. I'm not sure if this belongs on the sub, but I'm still really shaken up by it, and I need to put this somewhere people will actually read it. My dad has had a few incidents in the past, including yelling at an Amtrak employee and insulting me and my sister, but this was by far his worst one. My dad discovered that the toilet was clogged in the morning. He asked me and my sister who did it, and neither of us did, so we said no. He told us that he knew it was one of us, because there's blood in the toilet, and no one else here gets periods. Please note that, while I am a fab, neither my sister or I were on our period. He at first just grounded us to our rooms, but the more we didn't say anything, the angrier and more entitled he got. He proceeded to force us to stand in the hall outside of the restroom until one of us confessed, saying that he deserved answers. We were not allowed to leave to use the other bathroom, or to get something to eat. We were not allowed to talk, or sit down. He periodically went by and interrogated us, stepping into our personal space and trying to intimidate us. This went on for about 1 to 2 hours, maybe longer. At one point he was interrogating us, and I started crying and hyperventilating. He scoffed and said, "You wouldn't be crying if you were innocent." He then got up in my face and stared me down. I closed my eyes. He was so close I could feel his breath on my face. Eventually, he scoffed again and went away. My sister and I whispered to each other, telling each other that we didn't do it. We debated just having one of us confess anyway, but decided that we would face him together, truthfully. Another 15 minutes goes by, and my dad comes back. He tells us that since neither of us would tell him who did it, we would have to change out of our underwear and he'd inspect it for blood, and whoever was on their period was the one who clogged the toilet. I'm sorry, what? I initially refused, but I was too scared to do anything except softly say no. He got even more pissed and said that if I didn't he'd take it as an admission of guilt. I know you guys are probably expecting me to put up a fight, but at this point I was starving and just wanted it over with so I could go eat, so me and my sister complied. I wasn't wearing any underwear, it was a Sunday morning and I was in my pajamas, so he made me put on a pair of his pants so he could look at mine. He inspected, and obviously found nothing, because neither of us were on our periods. He then decides that, instead of him God forbid being wrong about something, we must be using tampons, and that's why there was no blood? I suggested that maybe someone had cut themselves shaving. He glared at me and said, in an incredibly condescending voice, "Really? That's what you think happened?" Eventually my brother came home, and my dad gave up and let us go, citing some BS like "you now have permission to go make food." I'm not sure if it was because he came to his senses, or because he didn't want to punish us like that in front of other people, but I didn't really care. I was just glad that nothing else happened, and I could go hide under my covers in my bedroom and cry. I didn't end up eating breakfast that day, and he basically ignored us the rest of the time we were there. Down in the comment below, the Reddit user Agile Lion had a similar experience and explains to OP what she should do. I also recommend reaching out to extended family. I grew up in a household like this. Eventually reached out to an aunt that agreed to take me in. Please do this. Even though you know your parent is totally nuts, it'll do wonders for you to live in a household where you see much more healthy behaviors modeled. It'll blow your mind and give you so much hope. Friend's dad tried to steal my bra, claims that I stole it from his wife, and then friend finds the stash of her other friend's undergarments. So anyway, before we get into the story, my friend's dad was then divorced. Turns out he was a child predator with loads of CP on his laptop, and is in jail. And had about 5 restraining orders after, the friends and the friends' parents he stole bras and panties from. Okay, how I found this out was at my friend's birthday sleepover. We were swimming in her pool and we drank some wine coolers, with her mom's supervision, still illegal, but we didn't get drunk, just slightly tipsy. So anyway, friend's dad had a strict no locked doors policy. Anyway, I decided to take a shower so I, of course, locked the door. I was bathing in my friend's bathroom so I had her bedroom door shut and the bathroom door locked, if that makes sense. So I heard my friend's bedroom door open as I shouted "occupied" out of the shower. I got no response except the door shutting quickly, which I thought was just one of the other girls walking in and seeing that I was in there. Anyway, I stepped out of the shower and I stayed in the bathroom while I changed and dried off. All of a sudden the bedroom door opens again, and when I said "occupied" the person didn't stop and went straight for the bathroom door as they jiggled the handle extremely violently and pounded on the door once. I stayed silent as I thought there was someone in the house trying to get to me. 10 seconds later I hear her dad's voice yell, Open this damn door right fucking now. I'm already changed into clean clothes as I stayed silent and slowly opened the door. Why the hell is the door locked? He shouted as I apologized and explained I was showering and I wanted privacy as he said that. No excuse. I pushed that aside as I thought he was in a bad mood or something happened and he couldn't do anything cause the door was locked. I stuffed my dirty clothes into my bag as I went back to the party which we were all settling down with sleeping bags since the living room was big enough for us. I set my bag right next to me as I have some valuable stuff in the bag: phone, charger, money, etc. We watched movies up until 4 in the morning, which is when we started to go to sleep. I got a strange feeling about being watched, so I stayed up for another hour on my phone. I fell asleep as about an hour later I hear wrestling next to my head. I open my eyes to see the friend's dad squatting next to me, rumbling through my bag as he pulled out my dirty bra and underwear as he stood up. I screamed at the top of my lungs as everyone woke up. My stuff was everywhere as the friend's dad quickly dropped my stuff. I screamed, "What the F are you doing?" at him as everyone saw what he did and saw him drop my stuff. He tried to defend himself as his wife came rushing in. "I was making sure you didn't have any drugs," was the excuse he went with. I ran over to the wife and explained what happened as the dad was saying that I am a lying skank and that I forced him to hold my stuff. He was high or on crack, one or the other, as the husband was moved to a different room, and I explained to the friend what her dad did, and she told someone else and I guess it spread around. Everyone was panicking as they were all making sure the man didn't take their panties and bras. Then I hear the husband scream, "She stole your underwear," and so I called the police. Then 10 seconds later I hear the wife scream as it was just a shit show. We all ran over to her to make sure she was alright as everything started to go to chaos. Girls were crying and panicking because he had an area which his wife didn't know about and there was name tags for each underwear pile, like, Cindy's underwear. And there was comb stains on some of them. The police arrived and we explained to them what happened as he was taken away. About a few months later I went to court as my parents were pressing charges. I explained what happened and we won the case. Then about another few months go by and I was talking to my same friend and she said her parents got a divorce and that her dad was in jail for CP and harassment. I have terrible spelling and grammar issues as I'm not good in typing in English, especially with longer stories like this. I type and speak French. Edit. I talked to the friend, and it turns out that her dad brought the wine coolers trying to get us drunk, and her mother saved us from who knows what because she cut us off of the wine coolers after like 2 drinks. Who knows what would have happened if we were all passed out drunk. Another edit. So I was again talking to the friend and this is basically what happened after the court and was sent to jail. He still is in jail and he was put into protective custody in the prison at the beginning because, and I quote, "he FD with little kids so the prisoners are gonna F him even harder," but later was removed for trying to smuggle contraband. The other part is that his daughter, 16 now, went to visit him with her mother just to disown him as her father, and when he arrived at the little phone booth thing she said that half his hair was pulled out, he was bruised, his uniform was dirty, with who knows what, and he could barely walk. It was the beatings he got or the stuck up the bum. The rest of the girls there, I don't really know, but I talked to a few of them about a month ago, and 12-13 is doing fine. The 13th one isn't bad but isn't good. She has night terrors from it and has a service dog to help. Down in the comment below, a Reddit user how knows some people that have been to jail shared their stories. My mom's ex-BF did 5 years for stealing a car. He 100% confirmed pedos get beat the S out of, repeatedly. Also said COs always, at least at the prison he had been at, let it leak to the other inmates as soon as the chamo, jail slang for pedos, arrived in the pods. As well, my sister had an ex who had been in prison for some 10+ years on charges he told us were related to assault or something. He had a strange way of talking and explained while in jail, he had been working out one day with weights and some guys came and attacked him, smashing his mouth with one of the weights. He needed a ton of oral surgery cause of it, which was why he spoke a little oddly. This made my mom's ex sus AF, but he couldn't prove anything. After 2 years of my sis dating him, he let slip to her the real reason he'd been in jail was for estomy of a teen girl, I think she was 16 or so, with a foreign object. He was immediately banned from our home and my mom's ex had his suspicions confirmed, explaining that was most def why he'd been attacked in jail in such a manner and that he likely got a lot of other beatings he kept secret. The next story is from the Reddit user Fred Z. Read. My entitled mother tried to kill me. This is why I'm no longer in contact with her. I've posted a few stories about things my entitled mother has done and why I no longer speak to her, and I've had some people say I should give her a second chance. Here's a list of the reasons why that will never happen. It's in sections so it's easier for you to read. My sister will be referred to as sis. Played favorites and destroying my belongings at age 6. I first noticed my mother playing favorites, My younger sister, who's 3 years younger than me, when I was 6 years old, Christmas 1996. My sister got all the big presents and I got a few cheap bracelets and an ornament. My dad bought us rollerblades for Christmas that year, and the next day we were outside trying them out. My sister, 3 at the time, fell over and hit her head and began crying. My mother came out of the house and began screaming at me, assuming I pushed her, which I didn't. She wasn't hearing it though and sent me to my room. A few minutes later she came into my room in a rage and smashed all of my belongings, including my Christmas presents. Half an hour later she came in and said, her words exactly, "Your room's a effing pigsty. Clean it up now." When I asked her about it the next day, she claimed to not know what I was talking about. Freaked out when I got my period for the first time. If you've seen the movie Carrie, you will understand what happened. My mother isn't as psychotic as Carrie's mom and she's not religious, but she went really weird. She started asking if I'd had sex, how heavy it was, if I knew what it meant, but she wouldn't tell me, if I was ashamed of myself, and a lot of other weird questions. And every time I'd ask her to buy me pads, she never would. She'd just throw money at me and say she didn't want to know. And there were occasions when I had to ask my friends' mums for pads because my mom had no money or wouldn't spend her child support money on me because I'm not worth it. But if my sister wanted anything, she'd get it for her immediately. Wouldn't call an ambulance when I fell off a horse, but called one when the same thing happened to my sister. I was about 13 when this happened. My mom and my sister were really into riding horses, but I never was, but I was so desperate for my mom's approval that I started going to pony club with them. One day my horse got spooked by something and bucked me off. He was a really big horse. I almost landed on top of a barbed wire fence and was knocked out for a few minutes. I woke to my mother screaming at me, saying, "What the bloody effing hell do you think you're doing to stupid?" She didn't even help me up. A few months later the same thing happened to my sister, but this time my mother freaked out and came into the house screaming at me to get off my useless lazy ass and help my sister while mom called an ambulance. My sister wasn't hurt. She'd fallen off a small horse onto a pile of dirt, but she was milking the attention for everything it was worth. She was taken to the hospital and didn't go to school for the rest of the week. Takes down my door because it made a noise when I closed it. When I was 12 I lost the privilege of having a bedroom door. The latch wouldn't click shut unless you gave it a harder push, and would it swing open if it wasn't clicked shut. My mom refused to fix it. One day when I was closing the door so I could change clothes, it made a little too much noise for my mother's liking. She burst into my door screaming at me to shut the door up. Then she took out the hinges and took it away. From 12 until 14 I had no bedroom door and no privacy to change my clothes or sleep with the door closed. My sister and her friend broke into the school, but it was somehow my fault. This happened when I was 13. It was during school holidays and my sister and her best friend broke into the school and wrote out merit awards to each other, which was obviously a stupid idea and is how they were odd. After this happened I got the feeling that my mom was angry at me for what they'd done. This was confirmed many years later. The next story is a continuation to this. Admitted to my friend's mom how much she hated me. I always knew that my mom didn't like me, but the most I was ever told was that I was an accident and that she regretted having me. But I heard from my best friend's mom a few years ago exactly what my mom thought of me. My friend was over for a sleepover one weekend and my mom was talking to my friend's mom. These are some of the things my mom said. "I just can't believe that sis would do something like that. It's more of what OP would do. I'd never done anything that would give her that idea. I don't know why anyone would be friends with OP. If I were in school I wouldn't be friends with her." Destroyed my belongings because she couldn't find the broom. This happened one summer weekend day when I was 13. My mom burst into my room and demanded to know where the broom was. I said I didn't know and I hadn't been outside all day. She accused me of hiding the broom and began throwing my belongings at me. In fear of my life, I ran out of the house and ran to the police station at the other end of town. This was in 2003 and I didn't own a mobile phone. When we got back to the house and the police asked her what happened, she put on her sweet and innocent face and said, "I don't know what she's talking about. She must be on her period or something." The policeman believed her and wouldn't hear my side of the story and he left. Her verbal abuse turned physical. Her abuse was mostly verbal and throwing things at me, until I was 14. She started getting into these fits of rage over nothing. Couldn't find the remote, a slap in the face. Got angry over nothing, pushing me into a wall and throwing me and my sister out of the house. Couldn't find something to watch on TV, punch me in the face, push me on the ground and kick me in the back. Her horse didn't win at the show, my fault. Her car won't start, my fault. Run out of money, my fault. And the list goes on. She did this until I was 15, when I had enough. I warned her, "Take one step further and you'll regret it." Needless to say, She regretted it. The glass jar smashed to the side of her face gave her the message. She never touched me again after that, and I moved in with my dad. Physically abused my autistic brother. I won't get into too much detail with this one, but I found out a few years ago that my mother used to rip chunks of hair out of his head and many other atrocious things. Wanted to turn off the life support when I was in a coma. When I was 17, New Year's Eve in 2007, I suffered a spinal cord injury and brain injury after falling off a roof. I was placed under an induced coma. My dad was with me the whole time, but it took my mom 3 weeks to come, even though her partner at the time could have paid to get her there sooner. All she knew was that I'd had an accident and was in a coma. She came with things to bury me with. My parents were given the option to turn the life support off. My dad said no, having faith that I'd pull through, but my mom said yes and threw a tantrum when she didn't get her wish. So instead of burying me with what she brought, they were placed on my bed while I was in a coma. Rehabilitation was hard and traumatic, so I don't like talking about it, so I'll skip ahead to the next thing. Threw a tantrum after my dad told me. While I was in rehab after my injury, my dad let it slip that my mom wanted to turn the life support off on me. Up until this point, I didn't know this. I called my mom and told her I never want to see her again and that if I'm dead to her, then she's dead to me. Tried to steal money from her kids after our dad dies. In 2009 my dad and my uncle, his brother, died in a plane crash. I was 19, my sister 16, and my brother 22. My mother was there the next day to offer her support, but nobody wanted them there. My entire family despises her. She started asking questions about the will and his assets. Information we didn't give her. We didn't know the cause of death for 3 weeks after his death, and lo and behold, she got nothing. The will was written before my parents had even met. The will gave everything to my dad's siblings, and they gave it all to me and my siblings, so long as we promised that our mother got nothing. She's tried a few times in the past few years to get money from us, but we won't talk to her. I haven't spoken to my mother in about 7 years and I don't ever plan on seeing her again. She's a toxic person and life is better without her. My brother still talks to her from time to time, but me, my sister and the rest of the family want nothing to do with her. And me and my sister are really close. She's not entitled and I hold no resentment towards her. I love her to bits. Down in the comment, OP said that now is in a great place in life and she is happy. Thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video you watched, you can subscribe to my channel and like the video for more Reddit videos.